recording. Perfect. Cool. All right. So welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to get started, but just a reminder that this call is being recorded and our town halls are posted on the website as well. So let me go ahead and go next. So we're going to go ahead and get started with office updates. Let me back up for a second. On today's agenda, I need to get this out of my face. It's going well. On today's agenda, we're going to talk about some office updates and then focus on right-of-way permitting and pole attachments before giving some BEAD program updates. We'll close out then with some time for Q&A. So starting with office updates, the exciting news is we've recently added a new member to the team. Jennifer Thrasher started on November 4th as our accounting and budget manager, and we are very happy to have her here on board. She'll be paying bills and documenting the movement of money for the office, which is a critical component not only for NBO's functioning, but also for the upcoming stages of the NB program as well. Jennifer brings 20 years of accounting experience and service with the state with her. And with that comes a wealth of institutional knowledge that will benefit Nebraska's broadband office. Jennifer, is there anything you'd like to add or say?
Just good morning. I'm happy to join the team. I grew up out in Western Nebraska, and so I'm aware of how connectivity in rural areas has been an issue. So just happy to be part of the team working towards streamlining that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, as some of you may be aware, Trevi Harrison is sadly no longer with the office. Her last day was October 31st, and we wish her and her family the best of luck on the next chapter of their life. She was an invaluable member of our team as our outreach coordinator, and we all miss her very, very much. On that note, we are hiring to fill her position as outreach coordinator, so please encourage those who know who may be interested to apply. So the next that I want to talk about very briefly is the annual report. It's due to the legislature as a result of LB 683, which is the legislation that created this office. We'll be presenting it at a hearing on December 4th and will contain the 6 following items. A description of the status of all publicly administered broadband deployment programs, including the number of projects funded through October of the report year. A description of the quality of broadband service being provided to Nebraska residents, updates to the strategic plan, a summarization of the Nebraska Broadband Office's outreach efforts and collaboration with all interested stakeholders, a description of efforts to promote digital equity and inclusion on behalf of Nebraska residents, and finally, an update on state advocacy on broadband issues being conducted. The last thing on the slide that I'd like to talk about is the fact that the team recently completed what we call the statewide circuit. The goal of the circuit was to reach out to the areas and communities that are going to be most impacted by BEAD funding and talk with officials in those communities about permitting and what can be done to prepare for the permitting that will come with BEAD projects. So I'm going to quickly just show you where we've been. So here you can see where we've been over the past month and a half. I would like to thank everyone who attended these meetings. We feel they were productive in getting a start on preparing for deployment before the many applications come in. Don't worry, if we did not make it out to your community and you'd like to be with us, please reach out and we'll get something arranged. With that, that leads us into today's topic at hand. Amber Ross, one of our office's grant analysts and our permitting and pole attachments point person, is here to discuss some things to consider in this specific area. With that, Amber, the floor is yours. Amber, are you there?
No, because I was muted, but now I am. So thank you. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. This is a really important topic, so I'm glad that we're talking about it early. So right-of-way permitting and pole attachments have been a problem for other states. So we're doing what we can as an office to address these challenges early, and we will continue to focus on these conversations throughout the life of the projects. Right-of-way permitting allows businesses and organizations the opportunity to work within the right-of-way, and it also ensures that everybody involved knows when the work will be happening, what kind of work will be taking place, and then any conditions or specifications within that right-of-way area. So it just really gets everybody on the same page moving forward with the projects. Next slide, please. So the reason that this can be kind of challenging as projects move forward, there's a lot of jurisdictional differences. So many of our defined projects areas may cross city limits, county lines, utility district regions, and even like natural resource districts. And so the application and approval processes may vary depending on the jurisdiction, which can create confusion for the applicants. So like I said, this could include counties, cities, private properties, protected lands, and railroads. And then some resource constraints to consider. Jurisdictions often have limited personnel, and in some cases, no dedicated staff focused solely on permitting and pole attachment agreements. So that's something we definitely have to keep in mind as we move forward. Next slide. So many of the poles in the project areas, we're talking 85 to 90% of those poles will have to be repaired or replaced before new aerial deployments can be installed. When the electric grid was built out in the 1980s, most of the state adhered to the minimum standards, and the public power districts or the rural electric cooperatives have not upgraded many of those poles since. And so that's why they will probably have to be replaced. So that's definitely something that we have to think about. While we know that a lot of these pole attachment agreements and right-of-way permit conversations have been happening throughout Nebraska, we really hope that we can jump into this conversation and keep it moving forward and find a way to get Nebraska connected in a really, really good way. So in that light, we really encourage applicants to engage with the pole owners before submitting their applications. Understanding factors such as the number of poles that might need to be replaced, and even maybe exploring alternative deployment options like underground installation can help ensure these details are included in the project application. Overlooking such costs in the original application could lead to unexpected delays and will be the financial responsibility of the applicant. If it changes between your application and deployment, those financial pieces will be on the applicant. Next slide, please. Some additional constraints to consider. Workload increases, so each project will also result in an increased demand for locators and general contractors. Technology limitations. Many permitting and pole attachment agreement processes are still reliant on paper-based systems, which can slow down operations and lead to additional delays. You can include permitting and pole replacement costs within your application. However, this will raise your total project cost, which is a scoring factor. So like I said earlier, if the number increases between application and deployment, that difference will be on you as an applicant, but you can include those costs in your application. In addition to the statewide tour mentioned earlier by Redmond, our office has been actively engaging with other partners, including the Nebraska Rural Electric Association, OPPD, the Natural Resource Districts, as well as BNSF and Union Pacific Railroads. Our goal is to serve as a facilitator, helping to reduce the bottlenecks and streamline deployments wherever possible. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our office if we can assist you throughout this process. So that's what I have. I will be around to take questions later too. So thank you. Back to you, Redmond.
Perfect. Thank you, Amber. So we'll continue with my section here. Moving on to some just generic BEAD updates. Our initial proposal volume 2, I know much awaited, much requested, has been posted to our website. I don't know what that noise was. We have received some questions on when it would be published ever since its approval was announced, and we really wanted to get it posted as soon as we could. However, you're going to see some sections that are highlighted in red, as those are our initial proposal corrections pending NTA approval. But we can let me go into why that is really quickly. We submitted our initial proposal back in the spring, and since then, there's been obviously some shifts in the environment that we wanted to take into account. So that's the result of the initial proposal corrections. Many of those are typos or change in vernacular from the outdated language of LOI to now OA and PA. So things of that nature needed to take place to avoid any level of confusion. So that's why we even had corrections. Because we know many of you here with us today are waiting on this, we felt that it was paramount to get it posted and available to all sooner rather than later. So that's why you're going to see A, why it was a little bit slower, and B, why you're going to see some remaining red lines that will require to go through a formalized IP correction process. But we've been assured by the NTA that will happen relatively quickly, and there won't be any issues in getting those corrections out, which is why we feel comfortable posting that copy. There will be like an official final copy later, but it will be functionally the same. We are also currently in the process of finalizing our location inventory based on our challenge process. That, by the way, started in July, so it's been a joy. We've been told by the NTA that we are at the finish line on this, so yay. Yeah, I'll get into that in a second, Tom. So far, it has gone through 4 rounds of curing. With each round, our map inventory has become more and more accurate. Rest assured that the office is working diligently to ensure that our final inventory and map are as accurate as possible. Ultimately, once NTA has approved it, we will get our inventory published and posted ASAP along with our defined project map, or defined project area or DPA map. Currently, we anticipate more than 100 DPAs in total across the state, could be even as high as over 130. So just keep that in mind. There are several criteria that have gone into informing our DPAs, such as keeping project costs down and considering the geography of the state. After publication of our DPA map, we will publish our organizational application, which is the OA, which is awaiting legal review currently. The organizational application will come out prior to the project application, which is the PA. Those both have replaced the outdated language of the LOI, which is the letter of intent. I think it was. It's been a while since we've used that. So those are those definitions. This process will be a 30-day period where entities interested in applying for a project must, and I want to repeat this, must, it's in all caps, italics, bolded, underlined, everything, must apply in this phase, or else they'll be unable to apply for a project. Now I'm going to repeat that because this is important. You must apply during the organizational application window, which is 30 days, or else you will not be able to apply for any BEAD funding. So while there are additional project application phase, the organizational application phase is extremely important and needs to be addressed first. And if you do not address it first, you will not be eligible to apply for the project applications. Okay? I just want to make sure that's very clear. I don't want any questions on that. Within 30 days of this window closing, we will publish a list of eligible applicants. Again, why it's important to apply. And if you're not on that list, again, you cannot apply for project application. Entities from this list will have 30 days from the posting of this applicant list to submit an application for the project area. So I think it's into the PA rounds, and of which there'll be more than one. So that kind of briefly covers that piece and what to expect in the near future. I would expect more and more information to come out over the next month on this as well. We are very, very close to not only the challenge process, but also the RFA process, request for applications. process. So just be really expecting and paying attention to the website, as that will get seriously updated in the coming weeks to months. So with that, that concludes our presentation. Although one thing I do want to highlight on this slide specifically, you will see, I believe in the bottom left of your screen, it should be, our new email address, nbo.admin, that's spelled ADMIN, @nebraska.gov. That's our new email address. Please send any inquiries there. That is going to be our generic email address. I'm told that we are going to have a separate one for grants too, but we will announce that at a later date. But that is the best way of contacting us. Anything sent to the previous email address will be forwarded to this address. So if you sent anything in the last couple of weeks to months, don't worry, it has made its way to us, and likely you've already gotten a response. But moving forward, this will be the way to reach us by email. And again, probably one of the best ways to reach us if you want to get your questions answered, if you want assistance, if you want timely response. I would highly recommend sending it via email. All right, and with that, thank you all for joining us today, and we'll take any questions you may have. And pull up chat. If you have any questions you don't want to ask them verbally, you can of course throw them into the chat as well. Will there be a pre-qualification period? Not really, unless you want to consider the organizational application to be the pre-qualification period. It's just, we consider it to be part of the application process. Will always come out the same time as the DPAs. There are a lot of questions coming in. I'm going to go in order that I'm seeing them. Will always, thank you, Tip, will always come out at the same time as the DPAs. We are not going to be holding back the DPAs. If legal review, for example, takes too long, we'll release the DPAs as soon as our challenge process results are approved. Again, we are very, very close to that. However, the OAs do require the DPAs. So if for whatever reason we get legal review done before NTA decides to approve our challenge process, then the DPAs will come out at the same time as the OA. So I kind of want to just illustrate that OAs are dependent on DPAs, DPAs are not dependent on OAs. We will release the DPAs as soon as they are ready, if they're ready before the OAs. Best estimation on timelines, I would say in the next couple of months, you will see the announcement for the release, or if legal review takes very quick or goes very quickly and the challenge process goes very quickly, then you can see it in the next couple of weeks. But that would be kind of my estimation right now. And any rough idea when OA will open? Oh, I understand you're still waiting on OA, NTA, but best guess. NTA, it's you know, it's a black box over there sometimes. Depending on the project, it can take, for example, with some of the challenge process stuff, days. With some of other things that we've been working through that I won't name right now, 3 months for a response. So no idea on their timeline, and obviously understanding current events, it could take even longer than that. But we are assured that we are the top of the heap for those who are dealing with our projects. So we should be getting stuff back relatively quickly. What is expected timeline for the OA and phase 1 of the PA? I think I just covered that, but again, we'll be looking at that in the next couple of months to next couple of weeks, depending on the speed of the legal review and the speed of the review. Is this shifting hope that projects are shovels on the ground April 2020? I think that means in the ground, shovels in the ground April 2025. Is this shifting the hope that projects are shovels in the ground April 2025? We're going to be moving as fast as we can, you know, doing the best that we can to achieve, you know, and actual results in the ground as soon as possible. So that was a lot of questions. Hopefully I answered all of them. Clearly there's some overlap with those. Any other questions? All right. I'm assuming that gave everyone enough time to type. I will talk for, oh, it's NBO. Okay. Thank you, Josh. Oh, more. Okay, good. Josh, is the NBO working with reps from other states that have been awarded already, such as Louisiana? We have regular contact with our sister states, but as I'm aware right now, we are not necessarily working with them on any of our projects, to my knowledge. But obviously we have contact with them. We have regular calls where all the different state broadband leaders get together and discuss, kind of goings on in their states. But as far as I know, there's no like actual working with us. Rick, does NBO see any B dollars directly allocated to the Nebraska tribal nations for infrastructure? No. I do not see any B dollars directly allocated to Nebraska tribal nations for infrastructure. What I do see is B dollars allocated towards entities that are going to build out on those tribal lands, whether or not that's tribal owned entities, such as like, I guess I'll just name Quick Current's the one that I know of. Then, in that case, then yes, but otherwise we are awarding to project areas, and depending on the number of BSLs, BEAD eligible BSLs on your location, you will have a DPA covering that reservation or that area. Tim, do you expect any changes in BEAD with the change in administrations in January? I have no idea. I have zero contact with anyone from Donald Trump's team, so not a clue. I wish I knew. That'd be fun to know all that kind of stuff, but unfortunately, I have no contact with them. Matt Larson, is a process being developed for applications that overlap other applications? Not as far as I know, Matt. My understanding of our process is that we have clear and distinct DPAs that everyone applies for individually. There's, in the way that we've drawn the map, there is no overlap between those DPAs. There wouldn't be any applications that actually overlap other applications. You might be referring to an instance where we have two applications for the same DPA. In that case, we go ahead and we score it. I'm looking like a PowerPoint presentation, so I apologize for that. At least in the way it's playing back for me. Aaron Krebs, any thoughts on required certification for construction contractors while working on BEAD projects? Unfortunately, I do not know the answer to that question. I will pass that along to our grants team, and we'll do our best to get that answer posted, probably included in our FAQ. So that means take a note, Diane. Josh from Sketty. And what is not is more where I was seeking details on. Yeah, we do get that feedback from a lot of these states. Luckily, we're the second mouse to get the cheese in a lot of instances. We've heard instances where because of the way the calendar works, and I won't go into too great of detail, there's been significant slowdowns experienced by other states on the BEAD process, whether or not they did not properly plan out, their challenge process and volumes 1 and 2 overlapping correctly. That has set them back several months. We are luckily not one of those states that are having to deal with that. So that's a learning experience for us. With that, there's also instances where we have seen, thousands of DPAs in a state. We know, no, we're not doing that one. Because it's just way too many project applications for both our applicants and for us to keep track of, and it just makes things way too granular. So those are some learnings for us from other states. So we have regular interactions with them. We hear, what things work, what things don't. We suggest things that have worked with us, with you all in the past. We've received several pieces of positive feedback on some of the ways that we've conducted ourselves as an office, and we decided to share that with everybody, both on these calls and at a variety of different conferences. So there is a lot of back and forth there in information. My apologies for not properly interpreting your question previously. Case Seibert, when will this recording be available on the website? Relatively quickly after today. Rachel will basically get it posted under the town halls. That moves pretty quickly. I can't tell you the exact specific time, whether or not that's hours or days, but it won't take very long.
It'll be within
Oliver. Thank you, Rachel.
It'll be within the next couple of days. It takes some time for it to process.
There you go. Next couple of days. There's your answer. I don't directly do it, but I just know it goes up very quickly. Well, at least very quickly in our space. Sorry, I'm used to talking this much. Oliver Borchers-Williams, good to see you again. How will DPAs be released? Shapefiles, list of location IDs, etc. Not exactly super familiar with how we will be releasing those DPAs. We're open to suggestions. I do know that we will have a list in Excel spreadsheet, bare minimum. But if you have any additional, please send them our way. Email is the best way to reach us. Again, emails on the screen, nbo.admin@nebraska.gov. Got to plug that again.
Yeah. If I could jump in just for a moment on a couple of these questions that have come up. I guess Oliver's first. Those will be an embedded layer on our Nebraska broadband office map. But accompanying that embedded layer on the map, as Patrick had mentioned, will be Excel files for each of the project areas that contain, at minimum, the location IDs.
Yeah, I was interpreting it as like what actual files would be made available. So I knew we were going to need the Excel spreadsheet. Yes, we are going to be updating our map, not only with the DPAs, but several other features as well.
Yeah.
So that'll be really fun.
Yeah, and soliciting feedback from potential applicants early on. Excel files were acceptable. Those could then be converted on the applicant side to different file formats if necessary, but the majority of feedback we got was that Excel was acceptable initially, and that'll be on a per project area basis. So those, you'd only have to download those project areas in which you're interested. I think back to another question that came up around requirements with contractors, and yeah, the grants management team, please jump in. At minimum, we're going to be asking you to look into your historical relationship with those contractors, whether or not they've had any compliance issues in the relationships and projects you've worked with them on before, those kind of things. So in terms of specific requirements, such as, you know, the first name of the first letter of the company's name has to start with B, no, there'll be nothing like that necessarily. But we are going to try to assess the relationship and from a compliance perspective historically. Sorry, Patrick, I just wanted to.
No, you're good. I was just wanting to let you roll if you had other answers for them. Thank you, Director Haggerty.
I guess I could go back to Josh's question. I'm in relatively regular contact with my colleague in Louisiana, Thomas. And my last conversation with him was right after they had completed their first round of applications. Josh, he was really excited about how it went for them. Approximately 80% of the preliminary subgrantees they were awarding were in-state companies, originating companies. The remainder of those were large multi-state companies, which I suspect we could see similar response here. And then they were able to assign or subgrant 92% of their locations in that first round. And they were negotiating, they were just beginning negotiations with the remaining 8%. They may have wrapped that up by now. He felt confident that through those negotiations, they'd determine how to get those served. I think another interesting component of it is they sought out Kuiper as a low orbit satellite company, whereas the majority of at least this office's conversation has been with SpaceX. So we're working on trying to find contacts for Kuiper so that they have an opportunity to be competitive in that area of technology. But other than that, yeah, I talk to them regularly, and they were really satisfied with how their application round went.
Thank you for that. Anything else, Director Haggerty?
No, I think those were the questions that I thought I could maybe expand on a bit.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I don't know the specifics of Director Haggerty's conversation with his good buddy down in Louisiana, Deputy Director Thomas Tyler, he's referring to. Yeah, I mean, it gets back to the point that I was making earlier that we do have regular conversations with our counterparts in other states. So with that, back to the list of questions that I've got. Benjamin, in the existing grants enforcement layer on the map, there appears to be built out commitments that are less than 100 by 20 megabits per second. Is it safe to say that those will be BEAD eligible if otherwise eligible? Yes, it would be safe to say in those instances. That's also the justification why ACAM came out, why it's enhanced ACAM began, because it would bring it up to the BEAD standards. So as a way of trying to not have duplication of funding. However, in instances where we have seen like there's a 10x1 build out or something like that, that's clearly not BEAD eligible. We are not counting that as an enforced commitment in our deduplication efforts, and those locations will be targeted for BEAD funding. Matt, are all DPA applications required to be standalone, or can they be combined into clusters of DPAs for a single application? I don't know the specifics on that off the top of my head. I do know that each project area is applied for individually.
Yeah, I think you answered it at the end there, Patrick. Matt, that each of the DPAs are going to need an individual application. So a provider can look at 60 applications, but they're all going to be individual and specific to the project area.
So there won't be any way to combine multiple DPAs into a single.
No.
I'm just asking because that's something that we've seen in other states.
Yeah, I know it's a fair question, Matt. But in this case, in order for us to, I think, maintain our organizational wits about us, we're going to ask for an application for each DPA.
Okay. All right. A lot of it will depend on how the DPAs are defined, because some of them might be pretty tough to justify as a standalone unless they can be combined with other things. But I'll just wanted to ask that question.
Well, and I've talked to other providers about this, Matt, and I think there can be contingencies written into your application. So whereas, if you don't get one, the other two you applied for don't work, that can be verbalized or expressed in the application.
Got it. That works. Thanks, Patrick.
Yep.
All right. With that, moving on to the next one, if I can. There it is. That was Matt's question. And Josh at Sked, thank you, Josh. Is the NBO taking any part in the possible development of a broadband workforce skill development through community college pathways program in high schools, etc.? Unfamiliar with that, but we can get you an answer on what our involvement would be. I'm not aware of any off the top of my head. I know that broadband workforce development is an area of focus for us, but I don't know if we've had any direct communication with community colleges or high schools or programs that deal with them.
I can maybe add to that one too, Patrick.
Sure,
sorry
go for
for jumping in here, but
no, you're fine.
Josh,
if you have the answer, go for it.
We have worked with, I think, most of the entities in one way or another in terms of trying to develop a more material, I guess, workforce program. Unfortunately, none of it has just really come together. A lot of our conversation with community colleges has led towards creation of a curriculum, which I hear from the providers that that's not necessary because of their in-house training desires. They'd like to have these individuals come through their own training. We do have some community colleges that have partial curriculum, such as fiber splicing, those kinds of things, which I can't imagine a provider wouldn't be interested in, somebody that's been through one of those programs. But I guess what I would hand back, Josh, is we are open to anything. I've said before, in many cases, I believe that was a weaker part of our initial proposal. So we're absolutely open to continuing conversations, in fact, invite continuing conversations in that area. And then just while I'm at it, a shout out to Amber, who is not only our permitting point person, but also our workforce point person, as she brings experience in that area to the office. So I encourage anyone that has ideas on the call to, in the meeting, to reach out to Amber directly with thoughts.
Great, thank you for that. Last question I have here on my list, Rodney Martin. If a tribe is establishing their network through TBCP funds, that's the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program funds, is it possible to still become a state recognized ETC and apply for funds? I think so. I don't know. I don't know the specifics of the application, but I think so. Is that right, Director Haggerty?
Yeah, no, that's correct. There's nothing preventing them from applying for an ETC and applying for BEAD funds if that's what's generally being recognized. There it says just funds, but I suspect that's
right.
BEAD funds.
That's what I was
there's nothing preventing a tribal entity from pursuing ETC and these funds. I think the only thing I would say in reverse is that any entity, non-tribal entity that would be pursuing funds for locations within tribal lands, tribal trust lands, as well as their actual tribal lands, does require consent from the tribe. So that would be the only, in reverse, that would be the only, I guess, difference in terms of that transaction.
Right, and then that is something good to highlight, which is why we've set up individual DPAs for the tribal reservations. Is that if you're trying to build out on the tribal trust lands, the reservation lands, historic preservation lands, anything like that, you're going to need a letter of consent, which is why we've tried to select those areas to make that as streamlined as possible, both for us, the applicants, and the tribes as well. Rhonda Hornback, thank you for your question. What technology is going to be more favorable? I'm assuming you're discussing what technology like we would be looking for. We don't particularly have a preference as an office, fiber, wireless, et cetera. Yeah. We don't particularly have a preference as an office. However, we are following NTIA's guidelines and kind of their hierarchy that they've set up, which is to consider priority broadband projects, those are fiber projects, over other reliable broadband technologies, which would be, your wireless, let's say for all intents and purposes, your licensed fixed wireless. And then both of those will be considered before we can consider any alternative technologies, such as Director Haggerty mentioned, Starlink, the low Earth orbit satellites. There's a couple nuances within all of those. First, fiber needs to be selected before any other broadband, other reliable broadband technologies for the same DPA, even if the cost is lower on the second. The alternative technologies are only able to be selected in areas that have been tagged with EHCT, which is our extreme high cost per location threshold, which is going to, I think I missed a couple letters in there, but that will be set during or in between two of our PA rounds as we gather more and more information. So again, we do encourage alternative technology companies to still apply during the OA selection period, because that is the only time that we can have that period, and in which, we will be able to create that list of eligible entities, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, basically per NTA guidelines, it kind of goes fiber on top, other reliable broadband technologies, and then these alternative technologies at the very bottom. We will be, leveraging all tools at our disposal, though, to make sure all Nebraskans, all unserved and underserved Nebraskans, receive broadband service. As we are confident that not only we're going to hit our mandate of serving all unserved Nebraskans, but we also will be able to stretch a little bit further and get all the underserved Nebraskans as well. So hopefully that answers your question as to kind of what it is we're looking at. That doesn't mean that we're not going to make any awards to other reliable broadband technologies. That does not mean that we're not going to make any awards to any alternative technologies. But what that does mean is per NTA guidelines, we have to go ahead and prioritize fiber as much as possible. It is also written into our volume 2 as required through the program that our mission and goal is to get fiber as far as possible and use whatever means necessary to do so, and legal. Just to throw that in there. Matt Larson, any ballpark idea when the OA period will open? Again, I would say in the next couple of weeks to months, depending on NTIA, review period for our challenge process. We need to have a final inventory before we can start granting locations, as well as legal of our RFA. Those are the two things that are currently holding us up right now. We are working as diligently as possible with our partners to get kind of those things taken care of. And as we develop a clearer understanding of the timeline, we will make that known. What I would expect is that we would probably have our DPAs published first, and at the time of the publication of the DPAs, have a much clearer idea of when the OA period will open. So again, with that challenge process inventory, we are very close. We have been informed by the guy that is doing the review that we're at the final stop in that process. And to put that in perspective, there are 800,000 plus lines of code, and we're currently working our way through like 0.0001% of those. So my math is probably off on the exact decimal point there, but like it's very, very small number of discrepancies I'm working through at this point in time. Any other questions? What does DPA mean again? Determined project area. So that's basically like a grouping of locations that we have determined and put together as in order to, in my opinion of the way that we've run this process, stretch fiber as far as possible, I think would be a good way of saying that per our volume 2 language. For the
what I might add to that, or just expand on that, Patrick, Ferranda, is we, in difference to some other states, such as Louisiana that was mentioned earlier, they did parishes to create their defined project areas. I've talked to other colleagues that did zip codes or school districts. We ran ours through what we call the optimization platform, which based on 9 different variables drew our project boundaries for us. One of those, just gives examples, some of the variables. One of the variables was to keep projects under $5 million so that we kept the playing field level that may not have the staff to take on the burdens and requirements of Davis-Bacon, any project that exceeds $5 million. Another variable would be that we asked the machine to draw defined project areas within being influenced by existing networks, believing that a southeastern Nebraska provider is probably not going to be necessarily interested in a northwestern Nebraska location. So that's how we came up with our defined project areas, Rhonda.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Amanda, JSI, for the matching funds are in-kind match allowed. Now, I would rely on Diane for the exact clear answer, but I believe the answer is no. I will talk to her and make sure that that's correct, though.
I think what I would say is through NTIA, they've shared with us a number of different times that they don't care where the 25% from, it just needs to be 25%. So
Right.
If, Amanda, what you're asking is, say a county is willing to work with a provider, an applicant to share in that 25% match requirement, that's acceptable. I don't know if by in-kind that's a good example, but I would just rest on the statement that NTIA has made, like I said, on multiple times.
I did just get a message from Diane as I'm speaking. In-kind is allowed. So there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why I have to consult with Diane.
I guess I just didn't know what that would Amanda meant by necessarily in-kind.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I'm flashing back to some other things. What about existing facilities, Diane? What about existing facilities? I won't say an answer again. Waiting for her to answer that. If we don't have an answer, we will get it to you, though.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily, Travis, what you maybe ask the question differently. You mean, can you extend existing facilities to get to served and underserved areas?
What if you have existing facilities, as in the form of fiber in the ground already that could be to serve that area, and like existing huts and cabinets and stuff like that?
Yeah, so an extension of an existing network, I suspect that's going to be the majority of the applications we receive, Travis. Obviously, that would be existing plan that it's already been paid for in a different way, so you would only cost out the new plant, but I suspect a lot of the applications are going to come through leveraging existing plant.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? A lot of great questions today. Thank you very much for all these great questions. Not seeing any. I know, Kevin, you had your hand raised earlier, then you put it down. Was your question answered?
I was just going to let you know that Louisiana actually published their final proposal this morning and their provisional award list. So if anybody's kind of interested in
yeah, no, thank you for the heads up on that. I know Evan did say that there was a state, which we all could pretty much guess which state it was going to be, was going to be publishing their awards, or their final proposal rather, within 2 weeks, about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I would just add, Kevin, that that's a requirement within the final proposal is to post for public comment. I think some of the guidance has been given us some flexibility in the amount of time needs to be posted now, but that is a requirement from NTIA that that final proposal be posted for public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I saw an article that kind of gave a summary of it, and I'd just say a lot of what we were expecting, right? A lot of in-state awards, a lot of the ISPs that got awards also received the ARPA awards. So, kind of a lot of the expectations that we were expecting out of the BEAD program, we're starting to see out of the Louisiana process. So
Mark, I would suggest 30 days between DPA publication and OA, as companies will have to analyze this data. This would maximize participation. And Tom, thank you again for the posting of Louisiana final proposals, what I'm assuming that link is. Hopefully that is what that link is. I'm not going to click on it right now. To answer Mark's question, we will allow as much time as we possibly can. Again, we are moving as quickly as we can with the DPAs to publish that, but I cannot make any guarantees that we will have 30 days. To an earlier question from Josh on shovels in the ground by next April. Look at the calendar right now. It's November. That is an extremely fast turnaround. That's going to require not only the comment period we were just talking about, the final proposal, but also approval time for NTIA. And then also all the contracting and whatnot. So we're under a very, very tight timeline between now and then if we are still looking at that. So I would just say that we will give you as much time as we possibly can, but we're not going to be dragging our feet with getting the OA out or the DPAs for that matter, of course.
Yeah, I know Patrick's been very prescribed around his comments on which would land first. If I had to bet, Mark, which is going to be posted first, I would suspect it is going to be our DPAs, just based on what we know about the timing with NTIA and the finalization of our challenge process and the legal review of what is a relatively large document. So it may be what you're suggesting is the reality, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, but we're not going to slow down the OA process just to get 30 days in. We want that out there as soon as possible. Rodney, will NBO require a FONSI for the EA prior to construction? I have no idea what that means. Director Haggerty?
Redmond, I can take this one.
There you go. What's the
It's environmental review steps. So that is
Perfect.
Also one thing that I am working on as well. So some projects might require an EA. We are looking at the majority of the projects we're guessing are going to be the categorical exclusions version instead of the full environmental assessment. So we don't know that for sure. For environmental assessments, there will have to be a FONSI, but like I said, we're not expecting that to be the norm for many projects, but that we'll work on that project by project after award happens.
And I'm being told right now that FONSI is finding of no significant impact for those of you like me who are not environmental experts.
Yeah, and I think that Amber's spot on in that it'll be a project by project determination. But as Amber and I have done some very high level assessments of the state and where we potentially going to be at risk, it feels like most of our stuff should be categorical exception number 4, which is existing right of way. I mean, among other things, but in a general sense, existing right of way. So we suspect we can get through for the majority of our projects that. I'd also add that our platform application vendor consultant does bring with them at our request a environmental permitting expert specialist, if you will. So I think we'll have some resources in the office that will assist applicants as we look at the projects through a lot of the navigation of the federal and state environmental protection stuff. In fact, that just to extend that, the consultant is working on right now identifying for Amber and myself and Patrick the project areas that potentially could be the biggest risk for something like that. So we may, by the time we get to the application award, know more or less which of those DPAs are going to have significant risk associated with the environmental review assessment.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, with that, I think I'll close the question period. If you have any questions that come up in the interim period, please, again, feel free to send us an email, nbo.admin@nebraska.gov. We will answer those as quickly as we can, and we'll make sure we have Amber on all of the environmental questions. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we will see you guys again, hopefully soon, with our announcements of all of our very, very important things you guys are all waiting for. So with that, thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.